James, I'm so excited because you've finally seen All of Us Strangers, which I've been kind of drip feeding, talking and mentioning about on the show ever since I saw it. And I will say, I think even a way I might have undersold it in the sense that ever since I saw it back in October, it really did stay in my mind. And I'm really keen to hear your thoughts.
I feel like it's a film that is it to our taste?
To our taste?
Yeah, because I feel like I'm surprised, having seen this, that Andrew Scott wasn't nominated for.
It's criminal.
Academy Award.
I think it's absolutely criminal.
Like,
in particular for a BAFTA.
So many
for the
great
home crowd.
nominees up there, but I'm like, that performance I'll get into my review, but that performance belongs right up there with the rest of them. Everyone in it is great. It's a four-piece between it's four of my favourite actors working right now, literally.
And also Andrew Haigh, the director, has literally said, he's like, yeah, all the performances are great, because crucially Claire Foy and Paul Mescal have been nominated for BAFTAs, but Andrew Scott hasn't. And Andrew Haigh was like, he makes the film.
He's so good.
It doesn't work without Andrew Scott.
Snub.
It's complete snub. Really
People
criminal.
are talking about Ryan Gosling, Barbie, just nonsense.
Absolute nonsense.
This is the I can't believe it.
I know.
I don't know what. I mean, I'm sure Andrew Scott's going to be fine. He'll have plenty of good roles. But I'm like, if you're not getting it for this, do you think it's release date? Do you think it's? Because it's a kind of film that does usually get awards attention.
I think it's more that I can understand him not being nominated for an Oscar more, only because it's like, in the US, that film is probably a much smaller release than it is here. It's not got...
Andrew Scott's not a big US
He's
name.
not a big US name. Even the other actors, like Paul Mescal was able to get a nomination for After Sun last year, and I thought we'd be able to do the same thing here, but he is a big name. But Andrew Haigh isn't as great, a bigger director over there. I think it's sad, but I'm like, the lobby for All of Us Strangers is probably smaller.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, Andrew Scott is a household name. Everyone knows who Andrew Scott is.
Brilliant.
Paul Mescal, obviously, everyone knows, and
So
Claire
hot
Foy and
right
Jamie
now.
Bell as well. And you know, at the BAFTA nominations, it got nominated for Best British Film, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress. And I do not understand how it can receive recognition for all those things, but not.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, that you have a film like Rustin, which I've not seen, and Coleman Domingo has been nominated for his performance in that. Now, don't get me wrong, I've not seen it. I love Coleman Domingo, good actor.
Yeah.
But what I find so bizarre is that film had absolutely no chatter in
From
the
our
UK.
perspective, no.
That film completely passed everyone by. When the BAFTA
weird,
nominations
isn't
came
it?
out, I have friends who follow film, and they were like, what the hell is a Rustin? What is that? And it turned out that film came out in November. And I do not understand, for a film like it's got nothing to do with the release dates, because, like I said, it's been recognised in other categories. So
it's important to remember, to not over hyperfixate on the Academy Awards.
No.
They are not the be all end all of what is good in cinema. But anyway, snub.
Absolutely.
Major snub. All of Us Strangers, as George said, reviewed it a few weeks ago when he saw it at the London Film Festival. So go and check out his review if you haven't already. Directed by Andrew Haigh, based on a novel called Strangers by the Japanese writer Taichi Yamada. If I told you these four actors were playing in a theatre in London, the tickets were £200, I would not need to ask you what play it was. I'd just be like 100%. Yes, it's a four-piece, it's an intimate family drama. Blah. I'm like, done, sold.
Yeah.
Anytime you would just kill to be with any of those actors. I love them all. Stars Andrew Scott as Adam, Paul Mescal, Jamie Bell, and Claire Foy. So Andrew Scott plays Adam, he plays a very isolated screenwriter, and the sort of film opens with him gazing lustfully over a very hazy London. He's very sort of isolated, and he's distant from this London, and he's in this sort of very slightly stale tower block where it doesn't really seem like there's anyone else who lives there, and he's sort of struggling to write or to find inspiration for his writing, and he starts to write something. And as this happens, two major things happen to him. One is that he slowly develops a new relationship with his neighbor Harry, played by Paul Mescal, who seems to be one of the only other people in the building who, after a sort of fire alarm incident, catch eyes through their balconies, and he drunkenly decides to knock on his door and ask to come in. And, they sort of develop this very intimate new relationship. There's a bit of a generational divide between them, and they're both sort of opening up in different ways. While this is happening, he is also, through some sort of unwinding dreamscape, heads down on the train to suburban Croydon, where he grew up, and goes to visit his parents, who passed away when he was younger. And he is visiting them at the same age that he is now, almost completely untampered, unchanged from the time that they were before they died. and they're played by Jamie Bell and Claire Foy, and they are almost not. It sort of exists in a kind of dream logic where they're actually quite pleased to see him after a while, but they're not sort of acknowledging that anything has happened. It's very much like they're catching up genuinely and finding out who each other are, and that same way you would if you were just genuinely trying to understand who your parents were. And so the film structurally is this emotional tether between these two forces. You've got Adam being, pulling him in one direction, forcing him to confront his all sorts of unaddressed feelings about being gay and what that means, and developing this new relationship, as well as explaining his homosexuality to his parents and getting them in their old-fashioned mindset to understand it. And
conversations he was never able to have.
His parents died when he was 12. And things that I think all things about loneliness, things that were missing from his life, sort of almost trying to justify who he is now and having to explain it when he's never had the chance to. It's a deeply, deeply personal film, a very intimate experience, heavily cathartic. And I thought, I know this is adapted from a novel, but I did to do some research afterwards. I was like, how much of this is a personal story for Andrew Haigh? And I think it's obviously adapted, but Andrew Haigh, it's very personal to Andrew Haigh. They even shot in his house that he grew up in Croydon. So he's directly sort of evoking that this is a story of mine. And so, the scenes between Adam and his parents underscore this emotional connection between the direction and material. You really do get the sense that you're listening in on this sort of group family session. It floats along and deals in a very metaphysical domain. Oftentimes people will say, I'm not even sure if this is real. And we wake up and we go to different places. I think it was just completely beautiful and heartbreaking, and I just was completely mesmerized by it. Some of my favorite scenes were when Andrew Scott had individual conversations with his mum and his dad and how different they were, and trying to get his parents to understand his identity now, and talking about loneliness. One time he has to come out to his mum, and Claire Foy is like, in this sort of very old-fashioned sense, she's like, oh, really? That's okay, and people know about it. It's like, yeah, they know about it, and it's fine. It's a little bit different now, but like, it's a very lonely life, I think, she says. And she says, well, people don't really say that anymore, and if I'm lonely, it's not because I'm gay. And sort of being confronted with loneliness in a different context is forcing him to think about how, in fact, he is lonely. But is it because he's gay? And that's like an old-fashioned stereotype, or is it just because he is lonely? I thought the main thing I thought about this idea that it's ruining the idea that time actually heals all wounds, when really, if you don't address these wounds within yourself, they will like fester and burn until you address them, and just basically tear you apart. I loved the emotional contrast between what's happening with Paul Mescal and what's happening with him and his parents, and how a new relationship can really, when you meet someone new, I think you're always confronted with their ideologies and you're then faced with yours, and you sort of test each other on ways in which you see the world. There's this different sort of dynamic of them experiencing being gay in different ways, and Andrew Scott sexually not quite in the same headspace as Paul Mescal, but I thought it was a really well balanced emotional plane for the film, and I just thought it really, really worked. It's devastating. It's completely devastating. This is what was really funny. So I saw it, like, great time to see a film. I saw it on a Friday at like 11:20 a.m. screening, which is great time to see the cinema. And I saw it at like quite a small Curzon screening, but it was fairly full. It was like 14 of us in this very small screening. And like in the last 25 minutes, it's quite funny. Like, I'm sad, and I wouldn't say I'm crying, but like I'm definitely feeling it. And in the screening, you just start to hear, just like the last 20 minutes, and I'm almost like smiling because I'm in this room with a communal sob,
which is what cinema is all about.
What cinema's all about. And I left the screening being like, ready to face the day. Performances are just fantastic and really, really well placed. It's beautiful to look at. It floats at just the right, hums at just the right frequency to get you to where you need to be. And in some of the scenes towards the end, I think if I was to criticize it, yes, I see them coming, and yes, maybe I feel like I'm in a very cathartic therapy session for someone who's writing and directing and making this film, be that Andrew Haigh, be that the novelist, be that the actors involved. But it works, and it's very, very well done, and it just left me feeling very, very enriched. And I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's beautiful. Top performances, just absolutely going for it. I had a very, very strong emotional response to it, and it stuck with me.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just it gets all the awards for me.
I agree. I want to say I'm so glad you agree too, and we're just going to get on in a second to some emails from people, but like, there's something about I wanted to hug Andrew Scott in it. He had this kind of like deep loneliness, and what I've enjoyed is speaking to like my gay friends who have seen it as well about what they thought about it, because when I saw it, I also thought that scene where he first speaks to Claire Foy and he starts to have that coming out experience. I thought, oh, this is really doing something quite important, because that film is so much about because of he lost his parents when he was younger. He wasn't able to have a coming out experience, and it has affected the way he engages with being gay as part of his identity in later life. And I love that some of the conversations. This is what some of my gay friends were saying, that like the generational difference about. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't just seen it, but like. It doesn't. Paul Mescal asks Andrew Scott if he's queer, and Andrew Scott says,
they have this conversation about
when I was younger, queer was an insult, and then Paul Mescal says, well, when I was young, being called gay was an insult, and like that's so interesting. And you know,
everyone has different language at different generations that's acceptable.
And you know, my gay friends have told me about that idea of the loneliness thing is really specific and really true. And it rang really true for them. I mean. Yeah, and I also know someone who is very similar to the actual character of Adam, who like lost one of his parents, and it was so uncanny, the resemblance. And I think it's wonderful. I want to talk about it in more depth. I think we'd probably want to talk about maybe the detail of it, and we'll do that in the bonus episode. But let's hear what everyone else had to say about it. Friend of the show, Honey, writes in about All of Us Strangers. She says, "Hello, my favourite filmy boys. Just a quick one from me. I write to tell you, with tears flooding down my cheeks, my eyes are stinging, I have forgotten how to breathe.
Yep.
Just this second, I have finished watching All of Us Strangers. And in capital letters, Jesus Christ, I am a wreck. An incredible film, and I can't believe Andrew Scott wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this role. Easily the best performance I've seen in a long time. Love you, Honey. P.S. Please pray that I recover from this immense heartbreak. I feel like Andrew Haig has just ripped my heart out and stamped on it." That's from Honey. We also have...
Sorry, just like it is a very dramatic film, and the scenes that really like get you, I could have told you within the first half an hour that this scene would probably happen, but like it just manages to really get away with it, and the performances, and I think it's the really great writing as well.
Yeah,
that does it's like coming. I think in cinema as well, you talk about coming out to your parents. That's very rarely been done in that way before. Usually, it's this like, oh, I'm gay and this and that, and if you don't love me for who I am, it's just very sort of one note. Whereas this just was really like conversational and small, and
what I find quite
trying
interesting
to measure someone else's values and sort of readjust them.
I find it quite interesting that the film was heavily sold on being this kind of emotional romance between Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal, when really I'd say that's only 40% of the film. I would say it is actually predominantly about his relationship with his parents. But even on the poster, like Claire Foy and Jamie Bell are barely on it. Like they're just like a shadow in it. This email from Sam about All of Us Strangers, who he wrote in about Anatomy of a Fall, loving it, but also he says, "I have to say, All of Us Strangers took the biscuit this weekend, taking me through every emotion possible. I can safely say Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal are my favourite on-screen couple, and the scenes with Claire Foy and Andrew Scott were some of the most beautiful I have seen in a long time." We should also say beautifully shot.
Yeah, beautiful.
Stunning use of sunset and colour, and like very emotional colours. You know, with the burning orange.
Yeah, shining through. I thought they had great chemistry. Everyone has good chemistry, but Mescal, considering the romance, Mescal and Scott had very, very good chemistry.
Also, and I will finish Sam's email, but it's a film that really understands the emotional power of an 80s pop song. Like it has a really selective but particular use of music throughout, and some 90s stuff. There's like a Blur needle drop in it, but like all of the music in it, I think it was really well used and timed and brilliant. Anyway, Sam goes on to say, "As someone who has lost someone close to me recently, I really connected with this movie, and it made me really think that there is never a time to leave things unsaid in any situation, whether this be towards family or friends. So well done, Andrew Haig and team. You have, in my eyes, created the film of the year, and I would encourage as many people to see it as possible in the cinema." No question this week. Just wanted to say how much I enjoyed these two films, that and Anatomy of a Fall, and I say big thank you for bringing them to my attention. Yeah, Sam, agree. And also more. Would you like more?
Yeah, please. Yeah,
Craig writes about All of Us Strangers. He says, "Hello, gents. Just to preface, if you do read my email on the show, my partner is okay with me speaking about him.
Okay.
As a bisexual man, I was very much prepared for this film to break my heart, as I'm a sucker for heartbreaking tales. That's why I also like. When you said, "Is it to our taste?" Like, it's definitely. I think it is to my taste.
Yeah.
I do like. I guess and I realized when I was watching it, I was like, "This is to my taste," because I like heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah.
But what I didn't expect, writes Craig, was how personal I found this story. I resonated, and many in the community will, with the loneliness and isolation felt by Andrew Scott's character.
Really well captured, I thought, that sense of like isolation in an urban environment, and how that feels, even though you're amongst so many other people. Like, just like him catching the train.
Yes.
Like that nobody else has ever really shown except for one time. It's this very solitary solo thing that he does.
And also when he like eats chips in the park, when he goes back home, there's something childlike, adolescent about that. And that's when he first encounters Jamie Bell's character. Anyway, still feeling the painful loneliness as an adult that you felt as a child growing up queer is real for us all. The joke being that a mother from the 80s is asking these silly questions, but people ask you these same questions now about assuming you have a girlfriend, getting married, having kids, risk of STDs when they find out you're queer, and it can feel so isolating. The almost shame I can see in Scott's eyes at the start of the film when Paul Mescal turns up to the door broke me immediately, as I have been there, hiding my feelings out of fear and my own deep-seated shame. My second point is essentially secondhand pain. My boyfriend lost one of his parents in his early teens. We've been together for over 5 years, and he still finds it too painful to speak about, even now. But when we have spoken about it, he mentions that that the regret he feels in the conversations that he never had with his mum. She never knew he was gay, and he always wonders how his life would have turned out, what she would have said, etc., had these things gone differently. Seeing this actually play out on screen was very tough, and it felt a little too real. I know he would give anything to have that conversation, just to know she's proud of who he is now. It all filled me with so much pain, love, and heartbreak for my partner, and appreciation for my own parents. Hats off to the director, writer, and all of the cast who made this feel so real and personal. Andrew Scott deserves so much recognition for this. I'm writing this having been out the cinema for less than an hour, and I'm still crying on my bed at home. Sirens on our end. The film is beautiful in every way, but please approach with caution, as it can be extremely triggering.
It'll make you want to just give your parents the biggest hug and say, "You did great. Thank you for just being here and being around."
Yeah, it's a really staggering piece of work. And in terms of Andrew Hager's director, I mentioned this when I reviewed it, but please go out and check his other work.
Yeah.
So Weekend is probably the film closest to All of Us Strangers. It takes a relationship between two guys over the course of a weekend, and the intimacy and the observations about gay life and gay identity in that film are very much, the ingredients of that are drawn very much through into All of Us Strangers. I also like 45 Years as well, which is a film I've mentioned a few times on the show. And what I'm realizing now across his work, although I've not seen Lean on Pete or his TV show The Northwater, or Looking, which is his executive produced TV show, but with 45 Years, which is about a straight couple in their 70s, is that the observation of a couple, the observation of a relationship, I see across all of his work now as being really, really apt. And in fact, like the way he captures intimacy in 45 Years, there's actually a love scene between Tom Courtenay and Charlotte Rampling. So, and I think now, I'm like, when was the last time we saw a played straight, a loving, intimate sex scene between people over a certain age? And that's brilliant. And I'm starting to realize now that Andrew Haig kind of is becoming one of my favorite directors, because he just has a great emotional keel and sense. And I would just, again, applaud. Please go and watch 45 Years and Weekend.
It's also not enough films that sort of capture that sense of when you get to the same age your parents were when they did something.
Yes,
could be anything. So it could be when they died, or when they had you, or when they did a certain thing, and it completely reframes your understanding of what you thought they were as a kid.
Yeah,
because that's something everyone kind of goes through, and you're like, oh yeah, like.
Also, I'm interested.
I remember my dad at this age.
I can't remember if I mentioned this in my review, I haven't really kind of come to the end of this thought. I don't know what it means, but I think there's also something with the fact that Adam, the character's association with masculinity is very much stunted and locked in the 80s because of what happened with his parents. And what I mean by that is like you have this strange mirror image of mustachioed Jamie Bell and mustachioed Paul Mescal. And it's like the mustachioed man of the 80s of Frankie Goes to Hollywood was very much would have been very present, and it informed, I don't know, Adam's perception of men in his life. I don't know. I'm really reaching here, but I think there's something there I'm trying to tease out with. And when Paul Mescal turns up with his moustache, it's like, oh yeah, you're reminding me of a.
But also repurposing it in through a modern lens and making it his own.
I think so. There are elements of the story that we'll probably talk about. Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, we can do. I mean, like, it would just be, we won't spoil it. No spoilers on the main show. We can talk about it.
I think we can, because I've had a lot of people ask me about the ending of the film.
Fine, yeah, we'll talk about it briefly in the bonus for this.
So check that out. Stay out for that. But as many of you have, if you've seen All of Us Strangers, please write in and let us know your thoughts to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. Just go and see it. Yeah. Also, not to trivialize the whole conversation, but Andrew Scott is 47, and you would not believe it.
Great.
He looks fantastic. What a great looking man.
Some brands should be jumping all over his skincare
I think
routine.
we look older than he does.
Yeah.
We look more. I know you've been
I
ill
also
and I'm
think that
hungover,
he's... I've noticed, like, when you look at him from 5-6 years ago, he's had a good glow up. He's had a good little, like, getting a bit bigger.
Yeah.
Coming out of Hollywood. Like, in Sherlock, like, he looks fine. But, like, in All of Us Strangers, he looks great.
Anyway, that was All of Us Strangers.
Seen him on Radio 2 with Zoe Ball, fan of the show.
He likes knitwear like us.
He does like, but Paul Mescal too, he likes a bit of knitwear.
Paul Mescal is very much embracing that kind of, like, he has such raw sexiness. He doesn't need to actually, he can make scruffy look quite stylish. If you look at Paul Mescal's style, it's very kind of whatever, scruffy. That's very insulting. I didn't mean to be like that. He's like...
But yeah, I mean, Paul Mescal can do no wrong. I think Gladiator 2 will definitely put him in the mainstream for the Americans.
And also get him out of being sad.
Yeah,
He's been sad in a lot of movies now.
I mean, Gladiator 1 was sad.
I know, but
Russell Crowe is very mopey.
But he'll be sad with a sword in his hand.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
I'm all for
Sweaty, sandy, bit of blood on there.
You're not going to tell me that there's going to be a bit in this Ridley Scott Gladiator 2 where he's going to sort of cry and be sort of like, do his After Sun stuff. I don't think so, is it?
Do you think he will keep the mullet? The Gladiator mullet.
If he's got it now, then he must have kept it during filming.
And do you think they will, because I don't think they can do this, it's too much of a meme. Do you think there will be a hand floating over some like wheat fields?
I think more hand picking up the sand of the arena
and running it
through the fingers through.
Bloody hand.
How much blood has been spilled on this land?
Do you think
he won't talk like that?
Do you think he'll like shout to the crowd and...
Are you not? Do you think he'll do the "Are you not entertained"? But a different version.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think it's going to be really formulaic?
Oh well, look.
I can't tell if it's going to be safe. We're just talking about Gladiator 2.
Sorry, we're talking about Gladiator 2. But the thing about Ridley Scott, and we talked about this with James from Raiders of the Lost podcast,
check out the podcast,
who was a big fan of Ridley Scott and really championed him.
Loved him.
I think Ridley Scott's output is declining, and he's made
too many films.
He's made too many films, and he's making a lot of lackluster films.
I love how like most filmmakers, like there was like a gap in COVID where nobody made anything, and he's like, "What are you talking about? What COVID? I made 7 films in the last 6 years. Like, I'm fine, he's thriving."
But also, I love seeing Jamie Bell and everything. Like, I just like every time I see him, like, more please, more Jamie Bell. All 4 of them, fantastic. Can't wait to see what they all do and the director does next.